Let me know when we're live. Hey everybody, this is Daniel here with Propelio, and today we are going to be discussing you are not a wholesaler. Basically different pivot strategies where you can take your entire tool belt and stop focusing on just wholesaling and learn how to take creative strategies, meld them together so that way by the time you're said and done, you're not taking an $8,000 assignment, you're taking a $180,000 paycheck. And if you're going to survive in this business, you need to learn how to maximize every lead you have to extract as much out of that lead as you possibly can, so that way you've got the capital you need to keep your business going. And that's what we're going to discuss on today's show here with Shyne. Hey everybody, I'm back here with Shyne. I wanted to take a second and just say thank you for coming in today, man. You've been, I've been seeing you around these REI meetings and just love seeing you around. You've always got your shirt on, man. I think everybody knows you. It's like it's that dude that's always got the I Buy Houses shirt on there. So tell me a little bit about yourself and you know, a little bit about your company.
Well, I'm Shyne. My wife and I, we fix and flip around DFW. We're also wholesalers as well. We've been doing it since about 2016. And we're just, you know, just trying to do the best we can and, you know, be some of the big players in the game. So, you know, trying to get like you when I grew up, man.
I don't know about all that, man, but congratulations for 2016. We're going on, I guess, your third year here. Yeah. So, you know, big, you know, whatever we need to say good job for sticking it out, man. A lot of people get in, they're only here for 2 or 3 months, and you know, they're like, you know what, this don't work, and they run away. But it's the people that last for 2, 3, 4 years that are the ones that really end up changing everything. Yeah,
actually, man, since I've been in it since 2016, but I've been full time since April of last year, so I'm excited about this coming April, so I can say I've been officially full time, you know, real estate for a full year now.
That's awesome.
So,
I saw your show with RJ Bates. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, where there's a lot of shows that come through here. You started out flipping some stuff on eBay or something like that?
Yeah, I definitely started out, well, flipping a lot of different things. Selling pressure washers. Well, what happened was I came across this liquidation company that would kind of liquidate all kinds of stuff, but I accidentally stumbled across a pallet of pressure washers. So it was about, for the whole set, it was about $500 for maybe 5 to 7 pressure washers. Right. And I was like, you know what, they look valuable. I had no idea what they would cost, what they were worth. So I put one online for $150. I'm like, well, hey, if it costs me $50 a piece, you know, if I make $150, that's awesome.
That's a good day.
So I put it on, sold all of them the same day, and I was like, wait a minute.
Maybe they were a little underpriced.
So I literally went and started buying everything I could.
That's awesome, man.
And the next thing you know, you're making $17,000, $20,000 in, well, gross, you know, within a couple of weeks. And I was like, you know what? This is what I'm doing from now on. And so,
well, I love that mentality because, you know, it's people that have that business-esque mentality that I see that come in here and really do perform. I think prior to me doing real estate investing, I got a bit of a start on it because my father, growing up, he would go on the classifieds, find a car that wouldn't run, he'd buy it, take it home, fix it, and turn around and sell it. So I'd help him do that. So I started learning the concept of buying something and selling it for a profit at a young age. But that is going to be like what I'm wanting to discuss today, because I see a lot of people coming into this industry and they're attracted to it because they've heard of wholesaling, and or they've, you know, been told, you know, you don't need money to get into wholesaling, you don't need this and that to get into wholesaling, and it's a good way to kind of break into this industry, and in an industry that can really change your life. I mean, I don't know where I'd be at today if it wasn't for wholesaling. I mean, whenever I got started in this, I came from a rather rough upbringing, and then being introduced to real estate, and then in a very short period of time having real estate completely change not only my life but my family's life. I think is something that I would like to expose other people to as well.
Definitely.
But what I need to get people to start understanding is that wholesaling is not the end game.
Right.
Wholesaling is the beginning, and the faster you learn to expand yourself beyond that thought process of I'm a wholesaler, the faster they will become, you know, one step closer to retirement. And that's just my own personal thought processes. So I want to do a case study today. I'm going to do today on one particular property that I purchased a couple years back. It's one I talk about a lot because I've done a lot of transactions, but it's not too often where you get to take one transaction and take your entire tool belt. Like you've got wholesaling, short sales, subject to wraps. You got everything sitting there on your tool belt. Well, most of the time when you show up to a house, it's just you pull one of those out. You pull one of these out. I want to talk about some of those scenarios where I need to take that entire tool belt and just pull it all out and just start going at it. So that way people can start seeing that you're not a wholesaler. You are a single family real estate investor. And the more strategies that you can learn to implement, the better you're going to be at extracting the best profit out of a deal because you're using the right tool for the job. It's more efficient. It gives you more time out of it. So let's talk a little bit about your background. Where are some of the things that you have specialized in the last couple of years so we know how to tailor this conversation?
Well, for me, it's been, so we started out fix and flip or whatever. Technically, fix, flip, but we didn't sell. We fixed, flipped, and renovated, refinanced.
Right,
you know,
the Burr method.
Yeah, the Burr method.
Okay.
So, but then had a problem with that because then I became a real estate hoarder because I didn't like to sell. I like to own my whole, if I'm being honest, I would love to just own everything. I don't like to sell, period. But I did know in order for me to get to the next level, I was going to have to start flipping properties.
Right.
And once I got past that particular hurdle, it allowed me to leave my job. That allowed me, to create a system that I could actually do real estate full time.
That's amazing.
Fixing and flipping. So we kind of did it backwards. Then we recently, within the last year, started actually getting into wholesaling. So that wasn't even the way that I got started. Knowing what I know now, I could have easily gotten started in real estate back in 2011 or 2012. But you live and you learn.
So looking at that, there's several key takeaways I'd like to bring up just from that simple conversation right there and that goes back to the tool belt. You need to have more than one thing in your tool belt. What I have found is that while you may be, like in your instance, I really like to be a landlord. I like owning. I want to control and I want to own all of this real estate. That's great, but it also needs to be, because that's a cash flow strategy.
Right.
You need cash flow strategies and capital strategies. One of the things that Grant Kemp says, he does on Grant Teach Me Something on Wednesdays. He's the guy that mentored me through a lot of the creative stuff. One of the things that you have to be mindful of is today money and tomorrow money. And in my opinion, the rentals are the tomorrow money. They're your cash flow that are coming in. But to keep your tomorrow money running, you need today money, because if you don't have any money today, you're not going to be able to wait till tomorrow. So that's where you blend cash flow strategies with capital gain strategies. Capital gain strategies being rehabs, wholesales, those things where you can bring in a lot of capital. But as that capital comes in, that's the capital that's being used to keep your cash flow going and or acquiring more cash flow. You kind of got to do them both unless you just got a big nugget up front.
Right.
So it's really cool that I'm seeing, that you're evolving into that and starting to bring some different things together. So your background's primarily the Burr method, buy, rent, refinance, remodel, those types of things. And now you're doing some fix and flips. How many fix and flips you got under your belt now?
I would say maybe 10 or 11.
That's good.
Something like that.
That's doing good, man. That's real good. So let's talk about a property I got today. I don't have today, but it's a property I've done in the past. And I'm going to go through and break down the strategy that I used to acquire that property and how I started pivoting to make things happen. One of the things that I hear a lot of newer investors say is, I don't have the money. I don't have the money. I don't have the money. And I can full blown respect that, man. I was living in a hot water heater closet when I got started in this business. I understand the I don't have money part. But we need to move past that and learn how to be a transactional engineer. One of the things that I learned growing up is seeing different people do different things is you've got to learn how to say, here's my problem. How do I go around it, under it, over it, through it? Like, who can I talk to? How can I start pulling different things together to put this together? And that's what I mean when I say transactional engineer. How far out of the box can I get to start pulling into my network, into my knowledge, and start pulling different people, different things together to pull this deal down? I didn't have money either when I started. So let's take a look at this one particular property and see how we could take this deal down without using any money out of my own pocket. I do deals on a regular, very often, less now than I used to, but one of the primary things I would do when I was starting out is figure out, how can I knock this deal down without taking a dime out of my pocket? Because I didn't have a dime in my pocket to do it with. So I had to figure out ways. Let's take a look at a deal where we turned it from about what would have been initially probably a $30,000 to $40,000 profit and turn it into a $315,000 profit. Big difference between the two, and let's start taking that down. So to get into that story, I'm doing some direct mail marketing. I'm targeting pre-foreclosures. Pre-foreclosures is predominantly where most of my investing focus has been through my decade or so in investing.
Okay.
I'm doing some mail to this person, and I'm marketing to the appointments of substitute trustee. You and I had a conversation about this a little bit beforehand because it's a list that not many people are aware of.
Right. How did you get that list, though?
So how did I get that list? Okay, so let me break this down before I get too far into this so that way everybody watching can understand what I mean by the appointments of substitute trustee. In the United States, we've got two predominant ways of foreclosing on a property. One of them is judicial, where I have to go to the courts and sue somebody to get a judgment so I can foreclose. And then in the rest of the states, we have the non-judicial process, where all I have to do is read the law, and the law is going to tell me do A, B, C, and D. And as long as I do A, B, C, D, and E, I can foreclose. I don't have to have a judge. I don't have to have any of the court's involvement. And the difference between those two is called judicial and non-judicial. Judicial states use mortgages to foreclose. So I need to make sure everybody out there is understanding me on this. I'll slow down, and if you need a full class on this, I do have that class available in the Academy. It's free. It's about 6 or 7 hours long. I would recommend watching it. It's a free class. But mortgages are in judicial states. Deeds of trust are in non-judicial states. And the difference between the two is on a deed of trust, and that's where Texas is, I'm going to have a trustee written into that deed of trust, and that trustee is responsible for the foreclosure. What I had found through real estate investing is that whenever a property would go into foreclosure, the banks would hire a new attorney, and that new attorney would file in public record a document called the appointment of substitute trustee. That document was often a clear indicator that the property would go into foreclosure. It wasn't a guarantee, but it was a probable.
Yeah.
So I started marketing to that list, and when I started marketing to that list, it gave me a really big head start on a lot of other investors. So I'm marketing to this list. I get a phone call in from the seller, and I'm going to say it was probably around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, probably somewhere around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I didn't take the phone call. I had somebody answering my phones for me, but I get a phone call from the lady that was working with me at the time, and she's ecstatic. Like, she's just like, hey, you know, she knows what deals look like now. She's been working with me for close to a year, and after fielding probably 300 to 400 phone calls a month, she knows when a deal hits the table. So like, she's calling me up freaking out. She's like, hey, I've got a dude right now. This guy is hot as can be. He's motivated. He wants to get a deal done. I've looked through public record. I see a lien on file, and his original loan balance is like $230,000. I'm looking at the retail value on this property right now, and the retail value on this property right now is looking like $400,000 to $500,000. If the original loan balance was $230,000, we've got some room to play there.
Definitely.
I mean, so you can imagine how excited she was. Like, you know, when you see a couple $100,000 in potential equity on a deal, and the person's motivated to solve their problem, the deal just opens up. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can be done at that point in time.
I did have a question for you on the appointment of notice.
The appointment substitute trustee.
That notice there, is that also sent to the borrower, the seller?
No.
So they don't even know about that part.
No, they haven't seen that. And that's one of the cool things if you are using that list. I need to make sure that everybody understands, though, that just because an appointment of substitute trustee was filed does not guarantee that a foreclosure is pending. It just means that there is a new trustee involved. Now, my experience, which is considerable in this particular arena, I've done a lot of marketing to it, I would say at least 95 out of 100 times, a foreclosure is about to happen. But out of those 5 times it didn't happen, it's going to be a bank refi or a note purchase or something like that. But I'm almost guaranteeing that there's going to be a foreclosure happening on that. And it's filed in public record, but the seller is not copied on that or notified of it.
So most of the time they're unaware. Well, they know that they haven't made their payments, but they're unaware that it's actually about to happen at that time. So
so they're not aware of that.
Okay.
So if you want to increase your chances of moving something along with that seller, is we have access to public record. In some counties, we have access to it online. I did all of my stuff online. That's how I was getting my information. But my VAs would create a record in a folder, and they would save a copy of that notice in my folder on my Dropbox. So if I'm at an appointment with you and you're the seller and you're like, tell me what's going on here, man, because I know I'm behind on payments, but I haven't gotten any notices. And they're starting to try to feel the waters to see if you're legit, if you know what you're doing. Or not so much if you know what you're doing, but they're not wanting to be scammed. They're not wanting to be messed around with. But I could open up on my phone Dropbox and I could search for within Dropbox for your address, and it would find the address in my phone. I was like, well, here's the filing that was filed, and it would give me a bargaining tool when I'm sitting down with the seller to be like, I'm not messing around with you. This is what was filed here recently.
This is
and
happening.
what this means is, and so that would get the seller to realize that their rope's done. They've extended their time. They're not getting any more rope to play with, and that would allow me to get that person back into the state of mind of, I can't ignore this anymore. Right. So I have sent this seller, I get a phone call like around 3 o'clock. My acquisitions phone lady, she gives me a phone call and she's like, man, this is a hot lead. I've got you booked over there for 5 o'clock. One of the things that I have to say is when you get a hot lead hit the phone, for anybody that's out there watching right now, do not, and this was a piece of advice that one of my mentors gave me, do not figure out what to do and then do it. Basically do it, then figure out what to do. Because if it's a really hot lead and I'm sitting here trying to figure out, oh, what's the ARV, what's the loan, what's this, what's that, what's that, what's that. If I just overwhelm myself with figuring out what to do and then going and doing it, somebody else that's wiser, faster, and more knowledgeable than me is gonna do it and then figure out what to do. You got to strike while the iron's hot, and I'm sure that you know this after being in the business for several years. You don't survive in this business being analysis paralysis.
It's fire, ready, aim.
Yes, exactly, fire, ready, aim. And the point behind that being is you can structure your purchase agreements in such a way that I can figure out what to do later. And if things don't work out, I have an option period, I have some sort of clause, and or if I'm a more sophisticated investor, I don't need any of that. But structure your contracts in a way that you can get the contract and then figure out what to do. So, so I got a question here from Matt Smith. How do you get that list? An appointment of substitute trustee list is public record. All you have to do is go to your public record. It might be called removal of trustee, substitute trustee, appointment of substitute trustee. You're going to need to figure out how it's handled in your own county, and I can't tell you how that is handled. But once you've figured that out, you know, that start scraping it. Propelio offers these lists. I'm not going to sit here and do nothing but try and sell you Propelio lists, but Propelio does provide these lists in the areas that we provide them in. And we build those lists daily. Like there is no delay. Like on Monday morning, I have a full team of people scouring public record, developing those lists and providing them to you. The reason we do that is because I've seen a lot of success using those lists. That's where I started in this business. That's how I got into this business. So I provide that out to the people that are using Propelio. But deeds of trust and notice of trustee sales only work in non-judicial states. So if you're in a judicial state, this won't work for you. But there are other things in judicial states that you can do.
So are you saying Propelio also provides the appointment of sale, appointment of
substitute trustee lists?
Yeah,
yep.
I'm having trouble saying that part. So you guys provide that also, not just the notice of trustee sale?
Nope, no, so we provide both. Okay, so we definitely provide both because in my opinion, the appointment of substitute trustee, I'm just going to call it the AST for short, is a far better list than the other ones. And I've got another one coming up here. Mike West, North Carolina is a judicial state. That's great. But I don't know where we're looking at on time. I've got quite a bit to go through here, so if I can keep the questions till the end, that would probably help move the conversation forward unless a really good question comes up that I need to address right here and there. Everybody that's watching live right now, I love that the questions are coming in. Keep those questions coming in. I'll answer all of them once we get towards the end, and if I don't get them answered at the end, I'll make sure I spend the time after today's show to come back through and answer all those questions. But I've got some really deep nuggets to drop today that I want to make sure I get through. So I'm marketing this dude on the appointment of substitute trustee list. 3 o'clock appointment comes in. By 5 o'clock, I'm sitting on the doorstep. If a motivated seller calls you up, you need to get there and lock that deal up right then and there. You need to lock that deal up over the phone if you can. It needs to get locked up. So I show up 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Now it's time to sit down with the seller. I've told people over and over again, rapport buys more houses than money ever will. One of the first things I noticed coming in is this dude has got his dogs and he's all about his dogs. I can connect with that. I've got my dog. I've always had my dogs. let's talk about the dogs. Let's keep that going. You know, let's find some way to connect on something other than sell me your house. We're talking about the dogs. You know, he does a lot of volunteering at the animal shelters. He's really into that. I get that conversation going. And while I've got that conversation going, I'm multi-purposing the visit. I'm walking through the house, talking to him about his dogs. But while I'm walking through the house, I'm gauging what this house is going to need. Prior to showing up, my acquisitions lady, so she's the one that fielded my phone call. She's already done a lot of my due diligence for me. While I'm preparing for the property, while I'm getting all of my paperwork put together so I can head over there, she's looking up ARV and stuff like that. I've already mentioned ARV on this house is like $400,000 to $500,000.
Yeah.
ARV being after repaired value, $400,000 to $500,000. We've got a first lien position when originally recorded was around $230,000. We've got a big spread there. More due diligence comes through as I'm working my way to the property, driving to the property. There's also an IRS lien on the property for about 30 grand. But really, that's all I'm showing in public record. 230K on the first lien, 30K on the IRS lien. That's pretty good. So I'm walking through this house. Excuse me. House is fairly immaculate, man. It's like no repairs really needed at all. So I'm sitting here like, wow, man, this can be a slam dunk. What had happened is that the house had previously had a sewer stoppage that caused the toilets to back up into the house. Well, his homeowner insurance took care of all that. What they did was they came in and cut all the sheetrock out, completely replaced the sheetrock because there was mold, there was, you know, dirty water, crap water all in the house. So they cut the sheetrock out, replaced all the sheetrock. So now we've got fresh clean sheetrock, fresh tape and bed and texture and fresh paint. They completely redid all the floors. And while he did all this, he got that insurance money, and instead of just using that insurance money to just repair what was there, he upgraded. So he added on to the back of the house, completely redid the kitchen, all new kitchen cabinets, really nice looking design on that. Added, so on tax rolls, it showed to be a 2-bed, 1-bath. Well, whenever he did this addition, it was now a 2-bed, 2-bath with a master suite. So he did a really nice remodel on it. This place was looking good. The only thing I could say about the house that really needed to be addressed was the exterior needed to be painted and it needed some landscaping. This house had like a 200-year-old red oak in the front yard. Huge tree. This thing is just like huge. Like the base of this tree is like 9 foot around. Like you can't, 3 people, you couldn't even hug the tree. Huge red oak, but that red oak killed everything underneath it. It was just like a mud pit in the front yard.
Yeah, so it had to go.
So you can see what I'm talking about there. So I now know that this is what's going on. I'm looking at maybe $15,000 in cosmetics to get this thing looking good. Exterior paint job, some really nice landscaping on the front of it, a little bit to go there. This is before I've done anything other than walk the house. I already know that I'm looking at maybe $260,000 in liens and about a $440 to $460 resale is about what I'm thinking with $15,000 in its current condition. I don't need to do much to it at all.
Speaking of add-ons, though, let me ask you this real fast. When you said the tax rolls showed the property as what, a 2-1? 2-1, but it was actually a 2-2. When that, in a situation like that to where the tax rolls differ, isn't that an indication that they probably didn't get it done through the city without?
I love that question because that is an absolute question that all real estate investors should have brought up.
Yeah.
And I did. I used that in my negotiations because if it's an unpermitted addition, and like you're saying, it's being shown up in the tax rolls as a 2-bed, 1-bath that's 1,300 square footish. Yeah. And all actuality, it's a 2-bed, 2-bath that's close to 1,600 square foot. Why is there a discrepancy between tax rolls and what's there? Well, the common reason for this is going to be he didn't have it permitted. Yep. And if it wasn't permitted, that can cause me problems.
Yep.
So is that something I'm going to use in my negotiations?
Of course.
Of course it is. Is that going to be something that I try and prepare for myself as a real estate investor, that there is a chance that moving forward, I might lose 300 square foot? I might have an inspector be like, that's not permitted. You need to bulldoze this and or prove competency that it was done properly. Yep. Might I lose that addition? Those are all things that I need to be prepared for. My historic answer to that is I will address it as a problem with the seller. I'll bring it up and I'll be like, hey man, you did a beautiful job on this remodel. Looking at it, it looks fairly obvious that you built this to code. It's not a shack, it's not falling over, but I am still hit with a problem. You didn't permit this, man. And if you didn't permit this and I buy it assuming that there's gonna be 300 square foot here, what happens is whenever I buy this, I will have to permit the things that I do.
Right.
And whenever I permit the things that I do, that home inspector might say, hey, there's 300 square foot here that didn't used to be here. I need you to prove to me that that was built to code. And whenever he does that, that inspector might force me to open all those walls up, pull all the sheetrock down. I have to budget for this in my repairs. So while I see that you've done a really nice remodel here, I have to prepare myself for the fact that I might have to redo that remodel because you didn't permit it. And I'll use that as a negotiation with the seller, and I did in this particular scenario.
Interesting, okay.
So, but on the flip side of that, I as a real estate investor have historically found that old additions that were not permitted are often grandfathered in, and I don't get hit with the inspector trying to get me to open them back up. But there is a risk.
Yes.
And I need to calculate for that. Is it a risk that I'm extremely nervous about? No, that might be up to your specific jurisdiction as to how, ruthless they are with their inspection process. But my historical answer is, I'll make a big deal out of it up front, but on the backside, I'm not too worried about it. I'm not too worried about it because historically I haven't had a problem with it. It's
a legitimate question, a legitimate issue, but it may not be a major problem in the long run.
Yep, so I'll make a bigger issue out of it up front. And because it could turn into a bad day for me. I might win 9 out of 10 times, but on that 10th time I might lose big. So I need to be prepared for that, and I need to make sure that seller knows. So I've showed up, it's 5 o'clock, I've walked through the house, talking about the dogs, getting that rapport going, and I'm walking through the house and I'm just looking around because I'm trying to use that opportunity to build rapport while simultaneously just gauging what's this house like. And I'll use that time to build the rapport. And as I sit down later on, 30 minutes, 45 minutes into the conversation, when I really start talking about, some numbers, I won't address the problems I saw walking through the house up front. I'll just mentally note them. And when I'm sitting down with the seller, if the seller's reality is not mine in regards to they're thinking this house doesn't need any repairs, and I'm sitting here thinking like, well, I saw this, I saw that, I might need to start using that as ammo to be like, hey man, I know you're up here, but the reason I'm down here is because, I noticed back there in that second bedroom that, while the overall paint looked pretty good, we've got this one section where, somebody's been rubbing up against the wall and it's kind of dirty. Yeah. Well, even if the whole room looks really good, which it does, man, I'm not saying your house looks bad by any means, that one little spot right there now means that I have to paint. And there's no way I'm gonna be able to match that paint. So I'm gonna have to paint that room. So while the room itself looked good, man, and I really admit it does look really good, that one little thing causes more of a problem than what you might realize. And I'll start using that as ammo to bring that seller back down to where I need to be. But we've walked through the house, we're sitting down, we're sitting there in the kitchen, and I just say, man, tell me what's going on here, man. I know that we're behind on payments. I know that all this is going on. I know that, you've got some problems that are hitting you. What's happening, man? Why are we in this situation? Because for me, finding out the why means so much more than finding out what he's willing to sell the house for. Because for me, what he's willing to sell the house for and the why are often two totally different things. And if I can address the why, what we sell the house for is often not as big of a deal.
How hard is it usually after just, simply asking them how much pushback do you usually get from that? Do they just open up from that point and just tell you exactly what's going on, or they just?
There's quite a few things to think about there. And that is the rapport building process up to there.
Okay. Gotcha.
People want to do business with people that they connect with and they feel comfortable with. If you're that hardcore, just come in there and do nothing but just bam, 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 just trying to hit them as hard as you can to sign my contract, and you're only there for 5 minutes, that conversation might be a little bit harder. But if I spent the first half hour just not even really talking about the house, just asking open-ended questions. There's a really good book out there. I'll go back to Grant Kemp again. Like Grant Kemp does his Wednesday shows, Grant Teach Me Something. He was my mentor. He was one of the people that mentored me in this business. And I will recommend him all day long as a mentor to anybody out there. But he's the one that took me from wholesaler flipper to creative strategy, transactional engineer specialist. He is the guy that did that for me. He recommended a book to me called Never Split the Difference.
I actually have that book too.
We got to get that book out there. This is a book written by an FBI, a hostage negotiator.
Yeah.
If I'm a hostage negotiator and I'm negotiating with you or somebody else out there, and let's say this guy's got 20 hostages, do I want to split the difference with him and be like, dude, you kill 10 of them, give me 10 of them, we'll call it a day? We can't do that, you know? I mean, we can't do that. A hostage negotiator cannot give up anything. The hostage negotiator has to win from beginning to end. They can't give up anything. It can't be like, all right, man, I know you really want to kill somebody today. You kill one of them, give me the other 19. You can't do that. So how do you go into a negotiation not giving up anything? Read that book, man. It is a great book. Never Split the Difference. Get that book, digest it. Your question to me was, how easy is it to do that? If I've done my job right for the first half hour, ask massive amounts of open-ended questions, get that person just opening up to me, and I get that person trained to talk to me, my ability to get that question answered. Now, I'm not doing this in a manipulative way. I'm not trying to manipulate this person. I'm trying to figure out the best way to handle this. A good salesman doesn't sell anybody anything. A good salesman provides solutions to these people's problems. And the only way for me to provide a solution to this problem is to figure out what their problem is. And if I go into this negotiation assuming that the problem is money, then the only thing I'm going to focus on in this negotiation is money, and that might not be the solution to the problem. So with this particular seller, one of the things that was a motivating factor for him was his public image. He didn't want everybody, thinking that, he was in trouble. He wanted to keep that image that, he was successful. This was a rather affluent neighborhood. We're talking about a 1930s home, 1,300 square foot. Now, if you're in California, these numbers might sound crazy, but in DFW, we're looking at the median sales price probably around $230,000 to $240,000. It was 190-ish thousand a couple of years ago. I don't keep up with that trend. I probably should a little bit more, but I'm gonna say the median home value in DFW is around $230,000, and you can get a pretty nice house for 230 grand. It's not like the best out there, but it's a decent house. $500,000, depending on where you're at in DFW, can get you a really nice house. But we're talking about a 1930s 300 square foot house. Not 300, 1,300 square, with a 300 square foot addition, 1,600 square foot house.
Okay.
$500,000. The neighborhood is affluent. It's definitely affluent. You're not getting a really nice house for $500,000 in this neighborhood. You're getting a 1930s decent house for 500 grand. He was very concerned about his image. So I now know this approaching the conversation, but I'm sitting down with him. I'm now trying to figure out his why. What is he wanting? What is he wanting to maintain? The biggest thing he wanted was to be able to stay in the neighborhood. That was his motivating factor for all of this. He wanted to be able to stay in the neighborhood. He had a lot of equity there. I was trying to structure deals where, like, you've got X amount of equity. How about we take some of this equity and I'll work with you to try and find you another home. I'm in the business of finding houses at discounts. I like buying at discounts. How about this, man? I'll work towards finding you a house that I can get a discount on, that you might be able to purchase cash, put a little bit of money of your own into it so it's nice and it's comparable to where you're living at right now. It'll be a slightly different neighborhood at a slightly different price point, but you'll be able to have a nice house that's got some equity in it, so that way you're not stuck in a position without equity. And I can set you up really nice like this, so that way you've got some place to move after this and still be in a good financial position. No, I have to be in this neighborhood. His choice was, when everything was said and done with, and we'll roll through this as we get into breaking down the transaction itself, his choice was, I'll take all of my equity and throw that into a rental that's $3,500 a month, so that way I can live here for one more year and lose all of my equity. I can't coach somebody through that. That's his choice. If that's what he's wanting to do, let him do it. I tried coaching him out of that. He didn't want to take it, so I let him accept that. But I tried to put him in a better financial position than what he would have been had he done what he did. But I can't coach anybody. No. So here's how we took this transaction down, and I want to go through different ways of thinking about this as we push forward. How much was my first lien? Approximately, the original lien. Do you remember?
230.
About $230,000. $230,000 I know as is, without really doing anything to this house at all. I can probably retail it, and I'm just going to use a flat number for $450,000 as is. That's retail though. That's putting it out on the market and getting it out there to the market. $230K first lien, $30K second lien. Okay. We're going to get into how we took this deal down right when we come back from this commercial break. I want to thank everybody out there right now that's watching. Feel free to ask questions. Make sure you subscribe. If you're liking the content we're dropping, hit that subscribe button on YouTube, the like button, follow button, YouTube, Facebook, Propelio.tv. Go out there, follow us. We want to provide as much valuable content to you as possible. So stick with us through this commercial break. 30 seconds, we'll be right back, and I'm going to drop down and show you exactly how I transacted this deal to turn it in from a $30,000 to $40,000 profit to a $300,000+ profit without using a dime of my money. So stay tuned. See you after this break. All right, everybody, we're back here today, and we were discussing this property, and we're talking about taking it from a $30,000 to $40,000 profit to a $300,000 profit. As of right now, where are we at? How you feeling? You got questions about what we're doing? You feeling good? Where are we at here?
Well, right now, I have a lot of questions, but I definitely want to hear the full story first, and then see how you actually took it down. Then I'll definitely pick that apart.
As I'm going through, man, fire questions at me if you need to, man. And I want to make sure that I'm helping everybody out here in the crowd as well. So make sure you're getting your questions in from the crowd. As we get towards the end, we're going to open up to get this discussion going, but I need to make sure I get to that point. So I don't want to use too many questions, but feel free to hit me up, man. $230K first lien.
$30K second lien.
About $30K second lien from the IRS. If I'm looking at this from a wholesale standpoint, as a wholesaler, I'm either going to assign my contract or I'm going to double close on this deal. But I've got a motivated seller and I've got a lot of equity there. I'm negotiating with this seller. He's wanting like $350,000, $360,000.
Okay.
All right, if he's wanting $350,000 to $360,000, and am I going to be able to assign that to another investor? Maybe let's say he wants $350,000.
Yeah.
And I know that as is, it would probably sell $430,000 to we said $450,000. Yeah. I'm just going to call it $450,000. Yeah. It's going to sell for $450,000. This investor is going to have to buy it, list it on the market. They're going to have to list it out there with the real estate agent. They'll probably have 3 to 4 months of holding time. And once they sell it with the real estate agent, they're going to have realtor commissions, they're going to have title fees, they're going to have all that. Realtors commissions are probably somewhere around $25,000 to $30,000 at that price point. So if we're at $450,000, we back off real estate commissions. Let's say they're at $420,000, and then I take on acquisitions and holding costs. Let's say that's another $20,000, and then I said it needed probably about $15,000 in light cosmetic updates. We're probably down to about that $385,000 range, that $380,000 range. If I get it for $350,000 from the seller, and man, if I'm throwing these numbers out too fast, slow me down.
Yeah, I'm good.
If I get this at $350,000 from the seller, and I'm trying to assign this, there's only about $30,000 of profit available there. Yep. And that's kind of a thin deal for a rehabber and or a prehabber to take on.
At that price point.
At that price point, that's not that good of a deal. If I'm a novice wholesaler and or an intermediate newer wholesaler, I'm sitting here thinking, wow, there's an $80,000 spread on this. I can move it for $450,000. I got it for $350,000. There's $100,000 in spread on that deal. But whenever I start looking at it from a rehabber standpoint, that's where having the different tool belts comes from. There's only like $30,000 in profit on that. I say only $30,000, but when I take into consideration risk.
Yeah, you could have made that on a deal half that amount.
Exactly. So why do I want to tie up all my capital on this and all of my time for not a measly, but a mediocre deal?
Right.
Okay.
At best.
So I know that $350,000 number is not going to work out. Even if I'm wholesaling, that number is not going to work out. And as a wholesaler, I have to have the steepest discount because I gotta get it steeper of a discount than what a rehabber or a landlord's willing to pay for it. Yeah. So if that's the only strategy I have in my tool belt, I have to get super steep discounts. Yeah. Okay. So I know 350 is not going to work. At 300,000 though, that might work. And that was the number I started targeting for. So I started a little bit lower, the 260, 270 range. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. Obviously the seller's not feeling that. But I get him in at that 300K range, and I get him to accept that's where we're gonna land. So now we're at 300K. If I'm looking to assign this, I could probably get a landlord to pay, or not a landlord, I could probably get a rehabber, especially with the amount of repairs that this house needs. It doesn't need much. So I know that my remodel's probably not gonna get blown out of water. I know that I'm not gonna go in there and find a whole lot of issues that I'm being surprised with. I'm not having to open up the inside of the house at all. Maybe I'm willing to take this deal, because if I can buy it, let's say I'm a wholesaler and I sell it to a rehabber, I sell it to him for $330,000. Well, now he's got potential for a $50,000 profit versus a $30,000 profit. I might be willing to take a $50,000 profit, even at that price point, because my remodel's small. I'm not having to be concerned about overages and padding too much there. That's a deal.
Yeah.
That's a deal.
Yeah.
$30,000 wholesale fee.
Yeah.
That's a good payday for most people, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially wholesaling, yeah.
Especially wholesaling.
Yeah.
What am I going to do though to change that from $30,000 to $300,000? We're already talking about ARV. All fixed up, this house ain't going to do any better than, we said 450, but I'm going to say 500. It's never going to do better than 500. How am I extracting $300,000 out of this property versus 30?
I'm guessing owner finance.
There's a lot of things we can think about here. Owner finance did get brought into this strategy. Well, let's talk about how I used owner financing as part of this strategy. Part of the strategy includes wholesaling to a point. Part of the strategy includes renting. Part of this strategy includes subject to. Part of this strategy includes owner financing. Part of this strategy includes remodeling. Part of this strategy includes all kinds of stuff. Okay. So this is where I'm trying to get at with saying you're not a wholesaler, man. And I'm not speaking to you specifically, I'm speaking to everybody out there. You need to get out of that mindset of I'm a wholesaler. You need to get out of that mindset of I'm a fix and flipper. You need to get out of that mindset of I'm a owner finance specialist. You are a single family real estate investor, and that is your focus. Now there might be tools that are your go-to tools, like I love remodeling. I love remodeling. Some people hate remodeling. I hate landlording. But you need to learn all of the tools in your tool belt. You might have your go-to ones that you like the most, but you're gonna leave a lot of money on the table if you leave yourself short and just say, I'm a wholesaler, I'm a remodeler, I'm a landlord. Learn how to become a single family real estate investor, a transactional engineer. $30,000 in estimated profit if I wholesale this. Okay, let's look at an alternate strategy that I might be able to do to knock this deal down. We're talking about wholesaling. Could I possibly wholesale it? Could I take it down, purchase it, and then just take it straight out to the retail market, and then take it out there and sell it for $430, $440, $450?
So wholesaling, since it's only $15,000 as a full remodels, would you just like knock the tree down in the front, or what?
No, that's a crazy thing, and I'm glad you mentioned that tree out front. That tree was protected by the city of Dallas as a historic monument. If I cut that tree down, $100,000 fine. This tree is huge, man. Like bigger than like where we're sitting at right now. Like your chair, my chair, this coffee table. That tree was huge. They estimated it to be close to 300 years old. Wow. That tree was a huge tree. But no, on that tree, it was beautiful, man. It was beautiful. What I needed to do was just sod the front yard. The sod would honestly probably die over the course of a year or two. Just there's that much shade. But clean up the front yard, throw in some bushes, paint the front of the house beautiful, 15 grand, done. But if I buy it from him, let's say I'm able to buy it for 300, I put the 15,000 into it, I'm into it for 315. I retail it at 450, back out 20,000, 30,000 in real estate commissions, holding costs. Let's just say my net on the backside for the deal itself is 400,000 at a $450,000 sale. Y'all following me out there? I sell it for 450. By the time I pay realtors commissions, holding costs, any of the oops factors in between, I net 400 at the end of that sale. I back out the 300 that I paid them. I made 100 grand. Just wholesaling it. Just wholesaling it, I'd make 100 grand. That takes me from 30 grand up to 100 grand, 70,000 more than what I would have if I wholesaled it. But the seller would not have been cool with that. The seller would not have been cool with it. What was this motivation for that seller?
He wanted his image.
His image. He wanted to stay in that neighborhood. He wanted to do that. How can I still, because if I'm doing that, I can't keep him in the neighborhood. I got to figure out how to keep this guy in the neighborhood and keep him happy. So through the negotiations, I know that I can wholesale it and probably make 30. I know that I can wholesale it and probably make wholesale it and probably make 100. And I really want to wholesale it. I'm really wanting to wholesale it. Like I'm really wanting to wholesale it. So how can I make this happen? The seller wants 300 grand, but he also wants to stay in the neighborhood. He loves his house. He doesn't really want to move out of the house, but his choices up until today have led him into a position where staying in this house is no longer an option. What if I structure a transaction where I'm able to purchase it, but let him stay at the house? Okay. Now I've solved one of his needs. One of his needs was I need more time. I want to stay in this neighborhood. I want to stay in this house. Okay. So now we've moved forward, and now I say, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and buy this house, but I'm going to let you stay here.
So to me, the obvious choice would be probably subject to, you would think. So I know there's more to it in this particular story, but subject to would be the go-to strategy here. Okay.
I'm glad you led into that because that's where we're going.
Okay.
He wants to stay at the house. I want this house. It's a hot, smoking hot deal. And that's how I got him from that 350 number where he wanted to be at down to 300. Because if we go back to another book, and this is why I tell y'all, there is so much information available to you out there in this world that all you need to do is consume it. There's a book out there called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. Very good book. And it goes through 7 different, laws of human nature. And one of those laws is reciprocity, also in concessions. So you're asking for 350, I'm asking, for 300, and we're unable to meet. So maybe I can get him to take a concession of reducing his price, but I'll give him something that I didn't necessarily want to give. You're at 350, I'll say, you know what? You're at 350, and I would consider buying it at 350, and I'm not really considering buying it at 350, but I know that this man wants to stay there. I'm not really, at 350, you're gonna have to move. Like, here when I close this deal in 4 or 5 days, you need to be out. It's done. I'll give you the 350, but I need you gone. But if you're willing to give it to me at 300, I'll let you stay for the next 6 months for free. Okay?
It's a hell of a concession.
So I get him to drop 50,000 off, but I'll let him stay there for free for 6 months. Well, if I let him stay there for free for 6 months, I'm gonna have to handle those carrying costs. I'm gonna have to pad myself for the risk of at the end of 6 months, he doesn't vacate. I'm gonna have to pad myself for those problems. So I get him off the 350 and I get him down to 300. As part of those concessions, he gets to stay there for free for 6 months. So I've addressed one of his personal issues. He wants to stay in the neighborhood. As additional concession, I say, I'll also help you find another home in this neighborhood that you can move into that will accept you in your current financial situation. You don't have income coming in, and you also do not have a good credit score. So if I'm trying to get you placed into a rental, plus you got all these dogs, this isn't gonna be an easy feat, man. This isn't gonna be easy for me to do. You've got bad credit, you don't have a job really showing any income, and you got these dogs, but you've got equity in this house.
So would you say that you potentially overpromised, or were you just throwing ideas out there, or did you already have something lined up to make that possibly happen?
What I did is I put into my paperwork that while I would do everything possible to acquire and find him a home in these 6 months in this area, that was not a stipulation of the sale. I would put in as a stipulation of the sale that I would do everything I could, but there would be no guarantees or promises that it would happen. And at the end of 6 months, 6 months was over. If in 3 months I could find him a place, in 3 months the deal was done. If it took 6 months, great, but at the end of 6 months, if I couldn't find you a place, you would have to concede and find some place that you could move regardless of what I did. I'd give you 6 months to try and figure out a way to stay in this neighborhood. Okay, so that made him happy. I got him off the 350, I got him down to the 300. Now that we're at the 300, I've agreed to let him stay there for free. But now, if I use a hard money lender and or my own capital to knock this down, I'm burning up all of my resources. Hard money lender, that 6 months is gonna be expensive. It's gonna be real expensive.
And that's just to get him out. You haven't even started the renovation.
Yeah, I haven't even started the renovation. I haven't even started the sales process.
Yeah.
And that 6 months time frame actually puts me right at the middle of December at this particular acquisition. I don't want to be going on the market right in the middle of the December with a $500,000 home. So
definitely,
that's where subject to comes into place. Subject to comes into place. And remember, I told you, I like doing deals 100% financed. It became almost a game to me as a creative investor to find out how many deals I could do without ever touching my money at all. It became at first a necessity because I didn't have capital, but as I started growing and building capital and having capital work for itself, I started trying to become a specialist of the deal itself and how to structure transactions where I'm not tying up any capital of my own. So how am I going to do this now? I've got a $230K first lien. I call up the bank and I find out that there's about, and I'm going to blow my numbers out of the water here because I don't directly remember, there's like a $190,000 payoff. Okay, so we're doing pretty good there.
So it was a $230K original loan, but he only owed $190.
Yeah, he'd lived there for about 12 or 13 years.
Okay.
All right, so, but he's also behind on payments. That's why he's going to foreclosure. He's going to foreclosure because he's behind on payments. I need to find out what the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance are owed from past due payments. That totaled about $20,000. About $20,000. So the original loan is about $190 with $20,000 in past due payments.
Okay.
Okay, so about $210,000 on that first lien. Okay.
Okay.
And then we've got an IRS lien out there as well for about 30 grand. That's still about where it was at.
Yeah.
I tell the seller, it's like, all right, I'm going to give you 6 months to stay here, but the only way that I'm going to be willing to do that, and it's actually going to put you in a better position, is because part of one of the problems I'm going to have placing you in a new place as a tenant is your poor credit history. Let's go ahead and do it this way. I'll catch up all your past due payments for you, man. I'll catch all of those past due payments up for you. That'll help you out on your credit. But as I catch you up on all your past due payments, I'm going to go ahead and make your payments for you over the next 6 months moving forward, and that'll help establish your credit again, showing no more of these 30-day lates. No more of those are hitting. So now we have got these payments coming in, and that's going to help you out, showing, you know, to these landlords that you're responsible. You just hit a hiccup.
So is that in addition to the $300,000 purchase price, or is that part of it?
So we've got the $190 principal owed on the first lien, plus $20,000 in past due payments. What I've agreed to do with him is take over this property subject to. So for those out there that are not familiar with the term subject to, you've got to start watching Wednesday's Grant Teach Me Something. He is an owner finance specialist. He will teach you from beginning to end how to do that. If you want to go out to the Propelio Academy, there is a full-blown course in the Academy. It's like 36 videos long that will teach you subject to investing. It's not for sale, man. I don't want people out here thinking like I'm trying to just upsell y'all into some mentorship training program. That's not what I'm doing. I'm trying to honestly help y'all guys. Go watch that in the Propelio Academy. Watching that in the Propelio Academy will expose you to some of these terms that we're using here today, like subject to. But what subject to is me agreeing to purchase the property from you as the seller. You will give me the deed to your house. In exchange for you giving me the deed to your house, I will agree to make your payments on your behalf moving forward. That is not an assumption of loan, different, and I don't have another half hour to teach you subject to investing, but subject to is I get the deed to the home, and in exchange for the deed to the home, I'll make the payments for you moving forward. All right, so what I've agreed to do with this seller, and man, if I'm confusing you, ask me some questions. Man, I need to make sure that everybody out there is following me with this. I have agreed now at this point in time, and I'm just going to say it this, I will take over your payments and let you stay here for the next 6 months if you sell it to me for 300 grand. So if I agree to pay him 300 grand, I need to come up with 300 grand. That's right. That's fairly straightforward. If I need to come up with 300 grand and I want to do this deal 100% financed, let me show you how I piece together that money. Let me show you how I piece together that money. He's got $190,000 on a principal first loan.
Okay.
If I take that over subject to, how much money do I have left to catch up?
110.
110,000. So if I can get the first 190 subject to, all I have left to find is 110,000.
Yeah.
I've got $20,000 in past due payments that have to be corrected. Okay? I've got a really strong network of private lenders. We did a show here once again on Grant Teach Me Something, because this man drops bombs like weekly. He did a show 2 or 3 weeks ago on how to use other people's IRAs to invest into your real estate investing business. There's a lot of people with $40,000, $50,000 sitting around in an IRA. $40,000 to $50,000 won't quite buy you a house in a lot of areas, but $40,000, $50,000 does a really good job of gap funding. Gap funding is the difference between your first lien and what you need to get the deal done. That's your gap.
Yep.
I use IRAs for gap funds all the time. I go to an IRA lender and I'm like, hey, you let me borrow 25 grand. I think it was 30 grand. I'm just throwing numbers out there. The number doesn't really matter.
Right.
I get them to give me 30 grand. Of that 30 grand that they give me, 20,000 of that is going where?
To pay off the lien.
To pay off the past due
payments. Right.
Past due payments. So I take 20,000 of the 30 and I pay the past due payments, which takes that first lien and puts it back in good standing.
Gotcha.
So now we're no longer worried about the foreclosure.
Now you just have the IRA.
The IRS lien. But I got a $30,000 loan. Where'd that other 10 grand go?
To the IRS lien, part of it.
No, sir. No, sir,
Really?
not at all.
Okay.
Where'd it go? Into my back pocket.
Okay.
Went straight into my back pocket.
But you still have the lien though, right?
I still have an IRS lien there.
Okay.
So subject to, in its most explicit, boiled down form, is purchasing a property subject to an existing encumbrance. That is the absolute, just like bottom dollar definition of subject to. I can purchase with any encumbrance of title. Encumbrance number 1 was lien 1. First lien, 190,000. Encumbrance number 2 that I purchased this property subject to was the IRS lien. I did not pay off the IRS lien when I purchased the property.
Oh, so you can just wait until the property is sold and pay it then.
Now, this is not me saying that this is what everybody out there in Facebook land needs to do. This is me saying, as an educated investor, I looked at all of the possible scenarios on this deal and I said, there's an IRS lien there, and while I don't like it, I can leave it there and pay it off at the end. Now, let me explain to you why I was okay with that. Okay? I've got 190,000 of this 300,000 that I need from the first lien. The 20,000 in arrears that I needed, I took a $30,000 IRA loan for a gap loan. I put 10,000 in my pocket real fast. I like that. I've got 10,000 covered. I've got the $20,000 in past due payments covered. I like that. Okay, I'm doing pretty good here so far. I've still got an IRS lien that's out there for 30 grand. That IRS lien that's out there for 30 grand, I'm gonna explain to you a little bit more why I purchased it without paying that off. I took deed to this house without paying that lien off. I still have the difference between the IRS lien and all the other payments and the 300 grand that I owe the seller. I still got all that. How am I gonna get that remaining money to pay that seller?
Well, let's see.
Let me explain.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Let me explain. I'm giving this man the next 6 months as a free ride at the house.
But you still have his mortgage payments as well.
But I still have to pay his mortgage payments. If I have to pay his mortgage payments, where am I going to get the money to pay his mortgage payments?
Or the 10 grand that you just got.
I just put 10 grand in my back pocket.
Yeah.
You like that?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't like buying houses. I like getting free houses.
Yeah.
And if I can get everybody else in the world to give me the money to buy that house, I got a free house. I didn't pay a damn thing for it.
Yeah.
That's where transactional engineers learn. You learn to pull your networks together. You learn to combine strategies. You learn how to weave things together. And the better you get at weaving problems together and solving situations that are difficult, and you solve situations, it's not always the money. You got to get into these people's problems and figure out what's going on. And once you learn what's going on, you can structure some beautiful deals.
Yeah.
So the next 6 months, he needs to stay there. I just put 10 grand in my pocket. That 10 grand is going to go towards paying his mortgage. But I still owe this dude a big chunk of cash to close this deal. Here's what I did. sir, I understand that you want to get this deal done, but in the amount of time that you need to get this deal done and in your current situation with everything else going on, here's what I suggest you do. And I think this is going to be really beneficial to you. What I'd be willing to do is I'd buy this straight up the way it is. And because of the timing of this and how fast I'm going to have to move, I'm going to have to structure it like this. I'm going to need you to take out a balloon note. And I'm going to need you to finance your equity in this property to me. And at the point in time we close this, at the end of 6 months, I'll give you your money plus a little bit of interest, so that way you can collect a little bit more off of this and we can get this deal done in the amount of time you need it done in so you don't lose this house. I'm going to need you to owner finance me the remaining equity in this property.
So he paid, so he financed the money that you owed him.
Mm-hmm. So he financed the money he owes me.
Interesting.
So how much did I have to pay for this house?
$300,000.
And how much did I have to come out of pocket?
Zero.
Zero. Nothing at all. I didn't have to make the payments for him because I borrowed that money up front too. All right, so you're starting to see how, so like if you're wholesaling, so if you're out there and you're watching this and you're like, you've got people, man, if you're enjoying what we're dropping right now, man, drop some likes, drop some hearts. You know, all I see right now is like 26 people, 36 people that have liked this, man. I need your help. I need you to show me some love. We are dropping and showing you, and I'm exposing to you techniques that will transition you from wholesaler to transactional engineer, and that's where I need you to get. So I need y'all to show me some love, show me some likes, hearts, and comments, some shares to prove to me that y'all are following what I'm doing here. I want y'all to see what's going on here. I just showed you how I acquired this property, and I still haven't showed you yet how I turned that in from a $30,000 potential deal to a $300,000 potential deal. I want to break this down for you, and I need some engagement from y'all, man. Really engage with us. Share this, YouTube, subscribe, Facebook, like, share, comment. Show Facebook's algorithms that you're getting value out of what we're teaching today.
Definitely, yeah.
I've gotten you up to this point now. Okay. I just showed you. And for the new wholesalers out there, and or even more experienced wholesalers that are saying this is a tough market, man, I'm struggling to get deals out here. Maybe if you went from wholesaling to being a transactional engineer, a master of the trade, not just a master of one little thing, becoming a master of the trade, you will learn different ways of structuring deals like I just did with you that will allow you to get creative in your contracting process, so that way you're able to solve more problems and get more deals. Because if all I'm thinking about is wholesaling, you're not going to be solving sellers' problems. You need to learn how to get out of that box.
Now when you came up with all this, the total strategy, is that something that you did on the fly while you were there with him?
Mm-hmm. That happened over the course of about an hour at the house, man, sitting down at the kitchen table. Like literally, I papered that thing up that day, and that takes me back to another show that I've done in the past where I talk about my toolbox. I started in construction at 13 years old. I've been a full-time employee of multiple jobs since I was 13 years old. I never graduated high school. I went through a lot of issues as a young adult. A lot of that came through, but as a construction worker, I can't show up to a job site without my tools. If I show up to a job site without my tools, I'm fired. Yeah. My tool belt was, you know, my pliers, my hammer, my screwdrivers, my drill. As a real estate investor, as a transactional engineer, I have tools as well. And those are my contracts, my paperwork. I would have a binder with like 30 different contracts in it that I kept with me at all times, because I never knew whenever I'd show up to an appointment how my transactional engineer process would go. And I needed to make sure that all the paperwork I needed was there, so that way I could knock the deal down right then and there, no matter what. So over the course of about an hour, this is how this evolves.
Wow, impressive.
So now I've got this entire deal knocked out. Obviously, I didn't have the IRA loan right then and there, but I knew I could get it because I'd already got my network built up. I'd already got my thought processes built. I knew I could pull this down. I papered it up. Can you help me go through what this transaction looks like right now from a monetary standpoint? I've got the first lien for $190,000. How did I get that taken? How did I get that taken care of?
Well, the $190,000 owner finance.
Subject to.
Subject to.
And I want to use the term subject to because I consider owner finance to be a different strategy.
Yes, subject to. Subject
and
to.
I want to explain that to people. Owner finance, in my opinion, is whenever a seller finances their equity in a house to me. That's owner financing, in my opinion.
Take it over.
Subject to is me taking it over. So I've got that $190,000. I took it over subject to. I've got my arrears. How did I handle that?
With the IRA loan.
With the IRA loan. And then I've got the IRS lien, how did I handle that?
You did, and you let it stay in place.
I let it stay there. So I took the IRS lien subject to the purchase of the property.
Right. And how much time would you have, okay, with the IRS lien, does it just stay there until you get ready to sell the property?
It stays there until I'm ready to sell the property. It's not something I'm having to make payments on, and they're not really going to foreclose on me for it, but at the point in time this property sells, the IRS is going to get their money. Gotcha. They're going to get their money. So I've taken over that IRS lien subject to, and then the seller's equity, I got the seller to owner finance me his equity.
The difference.
And I gave him a 6-month term at the house where I would agree to pay for it. So now let me explain to you how I turned it into a $300,000 property, into a $300,000 profit. Okay, let me roll through there. So now I own the property. I get a phone call on Thursday. I own the property by Monday.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. So if we look at how I handled this transaction, I purchased this property in 1.5 business days. So I get a phone call Thursday. I meet at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock is after business hours. I paper it up. Friday morning, I get on the phone with my legal team, my attorneys, my title company, and I get them on the ball. I'm like, I need an abstract of title so I can verify encumbrances of title. If you have questions on that, there's plenty of videos here on Propelio TV that you can research to figure more out about that. I get the encumbrance of, I get the abstract of title, I verify all encumbrances, I confirm that I've got the IRS lien, I confirm that I've got the first lien position, I'm good on that. Come Monday, I've already got my title attorney drafted all of the paperwork so I can purchase this property subject to provide the second lien to my HOA, or not my HOA, to my IRA lender, and provide a third lien position to my seller for his owner financed equity. And part of that note states that his equity will go towards paying off any unknown encumbrances. So remember how I told you I was okay taking that IRS lien subject to? The reason I was able to do that is because I was able to contact the IRS and verify the payoff, and the verified payoff confirmed at $30,000, but he's got $100,000 in equity there. I drafted the promissory note in such a way that it said if any unknown encumbrances of title arise after my purchase that were there before I purchased, it would come out of his paycheck. So I've protected myself. I got $100,000 of play. I'm okay with purchasing, man. I'm okay with that.
But the title did show that the IRS lien was in place, so technically that one would not have been one that you didn't know of before you purchased it, right?
What I basically said is all encumbrances of title that were there at the point in time I purchased would be corrected by his equity.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. So that's essentially, I don't remember the direct verbiage, but the verbiage basically said, you got to pay the IRS lien out of your cash, and you've got to pay any other liens that I was unaware of, because there were like 5 or 6 other liens that came up in the abstract of title that were called abstracts of judgment. In Texas homestead laws clearly state that abstracts of judgment cannot attach to a homestead property. So I had like $50,000 worth of abstracts attached to this property, but my experience and my knowledge of title in Texas law and homestead law clearly stated that those weren't allowed to be there. So I get my title attorney to also notify these abstracts saying, none of y'all are allowed to be here. You either remove your abstracts from here or we will open up litigation against you. Boom, 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 boom. I just cleared $50,000 off the title real fast. Yeah. But I want to make sure that all that's addressed within his equity so I don't get the ouch at the end of my day.
Gotcha.
Okay? Yeah. So in 1.5 business days, I own the property. Tuesday shows up. I'm planning to wholesale. All day long, I'm going to wholesale. I'm going to knock out a 100K lick. Good payday for me, man. I'm happy. Things are moving forward.
Okay.
I've got other deals going on at the same time. And this is where network means so much to this business. I've got other deals going on. A guy that had been introduced to me by my CPA. My CPA approaches me. He's like, dude, I've got another client of mine. I can't disclose to you his books, but you need to meet this man. He introduces me, we go sit down, my CPA, this other man and myself, we sit down for a lunch, nice little Indian restaurant, buffet, man, I'm getting my Indian food on, we're having some fun. And this guy tells me a little bit more about his business, and we find out how we can help each other, and he's like, he likes doing high-end remodels. He loves doing high-end remodels. Well, I'm out there in my other investing strategies, and I acquire another property that I'm wanting to wholesale. I don't really want this one. It's a bigger remodel than I want to take down at the time. I decide to wholesale that one. And guess who ends up buying it from me? This dude that I meet for my CPA at lunch. Works out great, man. I show up to him. I'm like, here you go. $12,000 assignment fee all inside this month. I got the $12,000 assignment fee. I got $100,000 wholesale. Not a bad month. Not the best month I've ever had, but it's not a bad one either. I mean, it's better than some months. And that's not including anything else that I might have had going on at the same time either. Good month showing up so far. 6 figures in a month ain't too bad. There's not too many people out there that can say 6 figures in a month was a bad month.
Exactly.
We've got this put together now. In the course of me papering up that wholesale assignment, he asked me, man, you got anything else in the pipeline that I might be interested in? I'm wanting to get 5 or 6 more properties over the next 2 or 3 months because I want to fill up my hopper. And I was like, honestly, man, I've got a deal going right now that I'm planning on wholesaling. I'm taking that one down myself, but it's a really good property. Highest and best use for this property, and I want you to pay attention to this statement right here. It's like, highest and best use for this property would not be to wholesale it, man. It would be, honestly, to go in there and bulldoze it. This house just needs to be bulldozed.
Really? Okay.
The reason that house was worth $500,000, was it because of the house or was it because of the land?
Area. The land, the area.
The land is what made that house worth so much, not the house. It was the land. It was the neighborhood. The neighborhood is what made that house so much. And if I'm running comps, should I be looking for 1930, 1,600 square foot homes in this neighborhood? 3 bed, 2 bath, 2 bed, 2 bath?
If you're going to keep the house, yeah.
Yeah. So my comps tell me it's worth 500. But if I look at the neighborhood tells me I could sell that house. I could sell a house on that land for about $1.5 million. Okay.
Jackpot.
That's a jackpot.
Okay.
So that's a jackpot. But how am I going to knock this down? Like, I was planning on wholesaling this. I like my 100% financing structures. How am I going to knock this deal down? So I'm sitting here wholesaling it to this dude. This dude's worth probably $30 million. He's got some cash in his bank account. And we're talking, and I'm like, man, honestly, the highest and best use for this property would be to bulldoze it and go vertical. And if we did that, there's probably like $350,000 to $400,000 worth of profit off of this deal. Real simple, smooth transaction. Neighborhood's selling strong at that price point. But when I'm looking at the time value of money and my abilities right now, I don't have the capital to knock down $1 million construction project. I'm just going to wholesale this, and I'll take $100,000 in a quick lick. I'll have it in the next 90 days. And he looks at me and he's like, if highest and best use is bulldoze it and build a new house, let's bulldoze it and build a new house. And I was like, well, I could assign this thing to you. I mean, I'm looking at a 100K profit right now. I'll assign it to you for 100K and you can have it. And he's like, honestly, I don't have the manpower to do that right now. I've already got some other verticals meaning new construction projects for going on right now. I prefer partnering with competent people and letting them do what they do best, and I do what I do best. I've got the money. I'll just oversee and watch. You do you, I'll do me. I'll give you the money. And I was like, well, what kind of terms are we looking at, man? I don't want to debt service $1 million in hard money. That's $12,000 a month in loan payments that I'm gonna have. So I'm gonna have to look at probably $50,000 just in a year's worth of holding costs. Yeah. He's like, no, man. How about this? I'll front all of the capital. I'll be a passive partner in the deal. You do as you please. I got faith in you. I've seen how you hustle out there. I'll be a passive investor in this deal. We'll split the deal up 50-50. All right, now let me look at this. Now we're looking at 50-50. I'm looking at making $100,000 real fast. And if I'm looking at a potential $400,000 profit, that's what I was estimating up front. That's $200,000. I double my money. But I can get $100,000 in 90 days, or I can get $200,000 in what I estimated to be a year. If I'm looking at it just from face value, the better option is the $100,000. Just looking at time value of money, risk in the market, I make more money on the $100,000 than I do the $200,000, because the $200,000 is going to take me a year, more of my time, more of my energy, but it's not going to do this, and that's not going to be. It's not going to A, build the relationship with this lender. It's not going to B, give me another check mark on my investing portfolio of saying I've done $1 million new construction projects solo. Yeah. It helps boost up my resume and give me more credibility in my marketplace. So I went ahead and said, you know what, sir, let's do this. Let's go ahead, bulldoze that house, and build a new multi-million-dollar property, and let's just take our $400,000 lick. How much money do I have in this deal so far?
Zero.
Zero.
But you still have this tenant that you have to find somewhere to live. I definitely want to circle back to that as well.
So I've got 6 months to get that knocked down. So during the 6 months, and what I'd like is, if possible, if my people in the back could look up that property. I don't. All I want is the pictures. I don't want to disclose addresses. I don't want to do anything like that. Ryan, if you want, I could text you. I can't text you the address to that property. I'd like to see if you can pull it up.
Always go to a break.
Yeah, if we go, let's go ahead and go to a break real quick. And when we come back from that break, I'd like to show you that property, and go ahead and look it up. And while we're on that break, let's see if we can get that pulled up. I'll show you what that house looked like, and I'm going to show you how we finalized that transaction and what the final numbers look like on that deal. If I'm boring you, my apologies. I'm going to get to your questions right now. I'm going to use the rest of this show to answer your questions, but I want to show you how I just turned a $30,000 deal into a $300,000 deal without using a dime of my own money after this short break. We do, but it's not. We don't have enough time.
Okay.
Oh man, my bad.
You live.
All right. So we're back from the break. I did not realize how long-winded I was, man. I talk way too much, so my bad for everybody that's out there watching right now. Let's open it up to questions. I want to show some pictures of what that property looked like, so you can see what it looked like when we're all said and done with the new construction project. I want y'all to see that, but I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions. I want to open it up to questions from you. One of the things you said, so I'm curious on the first marketing, do you call out they are going to be foreclosed on? With an appointment of substitute trustee, I cannot specifically say that. All I'm going to say on that marketing is that a document has been filed in public record that is an indicator that your property may be going into foreclosure. If you are behind on payments, please give me a call now, because it is imperative that we get this handled as fast as possible, because these properties will go to auction on Tuesday. This is kind of how I handle my verbiage. But yeah, on my very first marketing round, I do not say they're going into foreclosure with that marketing, because I don't know for a fact that they are. So that's that question. So you were asking me, how did I handle that 6 months?
Yeah.
So I used that 6 month time to buy myself the time to structure the legal side with my new lender, with my new partner.
Okay.
So I draft and create a new entity. He contributes to the entity. I contribute to the entity. Our corporate agreement clearly indicates our responsibilities. I have all of that drafted. I then sell the property, because I'd already purchased it, remember?
Yeah. Yeah.
I then sell that property from entity A to entity B, created with my new partner, and now that entity owns it. So this is all occurring during that 6 month period. Meanwhile, I've got my real estate agent helping this dude find another house. Okay. He finds another house that he's ready to move to. During that time, I then use my capital partner to pay off his interest, as well as the first lien position, because he's my capital partner.
Oh.
So then I clear all the encumbrances of title out. They're all gone. He's out the door. He's moved on to his new house. The day after he moves out, guess what happens?
What happens?
A bulldozer shows up in the front yard and just grabs a hold of the house and just scrapes it clean.
Wow. Okay.
So that's what happened.
Yeah.
So like you were asking what happens to the tenant. Well, over that 6 months, I used that 6 months to handle my legal, handle my closing process, finalize all my details, get all my construction bids prepared, get all of my contractors lined out. The day after he moves out, the house is bulldozed. December 16th, 2015, I bulldozed that house to the ground.
And how long did the new construction take you?
10 months.
10 months.
Took me 10 months. I started that project after other projects similar to that other man's had been started by experienced builders. I started after them, finished before them, sold for more than them, and created a better profit margin. So do you think that lender became a lifelong lender of mine?
Of course.
I've kept millions of dollars of this man's money out on the streets because I perform. I am known for performing. I will work around the clock, 80 hours a day. I don't give a damn how much I have to work. If I've got your money in play, it will work in the end. I might not know it up front, but I will fight tooth and nail to make sure it comes through.
That is the epitome of a creative man, because Jesus Christ.
You're right. So that's how we knock that deal down. So I don't know if we have 501. 501. There we go. All right. So pictures of that property should be showing up here in just a second. All right, so there we go. So if we got other questions coming in from the crowd while we show some pictures here, I'll continue that conversation. I've ran a little long on this, but I do want to answer as many questions as I can from the crowd. I'll make sure we don't show your search bar. As long as that doesn't have the address in it, we're good. All right.
I think we're good.
All right, we're good. Oh, no. You got your another tab up there on the very top. I don't want those showing up.
There you go.
Yep, and you still got it at the top, at the very top of that tab too. That tab shows it. There we.
Well, the top,
I don't know if we'll be able to do this.
The top shows it. The bar.
Or if you just take a screenshot of that one picture, that'll be good enough for people to see. Take a picture of that and a picture of the kitchen, and I think that'll be good enough. I just don't want to disclose for personal reasons addresses, so I don't want anything going on there. So are you paying his utilities during the time too, Jeff? No, I didn't pay his utilities. In my opinion, that's his responsibility. He needs to do that, but I did pay the mortgage during that time. Sonia, doesn't IRS liens follow the seller and not the property? Not directly. If it should follow it, but that was a valid lien on title during the time of his ownership, so it's not going to just get erased. So it did have to be paid off. Mark, I learned something new, so I can rent back to the original owner. I don't want to give you any legal advice because depending upon your acquisition strategy, if you're doing a short, that might not be legal. But for me, I was okay in this particular transaction doing that. Another question here from Sonia. How did you structure the private money payback? The private money payback was a 30K second lien. I had a 6-month balloon on it. What I ended up doing with no payments, so I didn't have to make any payments on that, and at the end of 6 months, I paid back the principal balance plus all interests. So that's how we were able to knock down that deal. Going through.
So what was your interest on the, did you guys just do a profit split at the end, or what was the interest on the?
So I charged him no interest. So the way I ended up structuring that deal with this dude is like, I'll promise you at least 10% on your money.
Okay.
But we'll split the deal 50-50. Okay, but if you loan me $1 million, I'll guarantee you make at least 100 grand.
Okay.
But anything over 100 grand, like let's say we make 300 grand, it gets split 50-50. You take 150 grand, I take 150 grand.
Gotcha.
But if for some reason I screw this project up,
you get at least 100 grand.
you get at least 100 grand. So let's say I screw up and I have to sell it for 150,000. Well, it's no longer 50-50 anymore. You get at least 100 grand and I get what's left. So you following that?
So he says minimum
of 100 and a maximum of whatever I can perform on.
That's
so when we
interesting.
finally closed that deal out, the net was about 316,000. I was shooting for 400, but I got the deal done a lot faster than what was anticipated, a lot better terms. Ended up selling before it was completed, and we net 316,000 off of that. So I split that 50-50 with my partner, and he'd had a real good day. He made 18% on his money, and because it took about $1 million in construction costs, sold for about $1.5 million, and the true net by the time everything was said and done was about 316 grand. So he was super happy. He made 18% or so on $1 million, and he didn't have to do a thing. All he had to do was say, Daniel, is the project still moving forward? Let's go.
So is that a typical, as far as your hard money, or not your hard money, your private lenders, is there a typical interest rate range that you'd like to stay between, or is it all across the board?
I am a terms guy. I'm all about terms. Interest is just only one part of the deal. That is, and sometimes I could care less what the interest is if the other terms are feasible to me. So some of my cheapest capital is no points and 6%, and some of my most expensive capital is a 50-50 split. I would much rather pay interest than I would pay equity in my deal, because my deals are good enough that I don't want to give up my equity. But depending upon the deal, depending on what's needed to take this deal down, I will split that up however I need to do. So I try to get obviously as low as I can, but my cheapest money is 0 and 6. My most expensive money is a 50-50 split.
Okay.
My average lender is probably about 1 point and 10% with no upfront costs, no appraisal fees, no inspection fees, no nothing. 100% front funded on all of my repair draws. So I'm not asking for repair draws or inspections. I believe they call it a Dutch loan. I don't pay any monthly interest on my money until I roll all of my points and interest into the sale. So it's a super clean, one true 100% finance. I'm not paying anything out of my own pocket.
That is awesome, yeah.
So that's how I structure most of my transactions.
I definitely need to get into some.
So here's some
profit.
Here's some pictures popping up here. This is what the property looked like whenever we had finished building it. You can kind of see what the design of the property looked like. We took that from a 1,600 square foot home up to a almost 6,000 square foot under roof. You can get a concept of what this home looked like. But this is the difference between, you know, did I ever build a home beforehand? I had never built a home in my life before this. But accepting and making your why bigger than your fear. So many people out here, they allow their fear to overcome their why. And that is where, whenever I'm initially sitting down with somebody, the biggest thing that I can say that makes the difference between those that make it and those that don't make it is how big their why is. Because if your why is not big enough to overcome your fears, you're not going to be able to do stuff like this. Was I scared whenever I said I'd do this? Damn right I was scared, man. I was trembling. But I knew that no matter what, I would perform. I have been the guy that worked the 20-hour day, 7 days a week for a year straight, because I knew that no matter what, I had to do what was necessary to win. And right there is a good case example of doing what was necessary to win.
It's an amazing example, man. So, let me ask you this. So as far as rehabbing versus new construction, was that a huge learning curve for you? Or
so that was my thought process. I've done a lot of remodels. I've never done new construction. What's the difference between a remodel and new construction? A foundation and sticks. That was the only difference. So all I had to do to add to so the only difference between remodel and new construction in my mind was a foundation and sticks. And if I can hire a contractor that is I don't need to find the bottom dollar contract because I don't know how to manage them because I don't know what their project is. But if I find a reputable concrete company and a reputable framer, and I let their knowledge come to the table, I can handle the rest of it. So that was the only difference between the two.
So the way that your mindset of it, that's actually how it played out. It literally was just foundation and framing, and after that,
everything after that's just a remodel.
Okay.
All right. So I know we've gone over on this. If there's any other final questions, I'd like to get those in. For those that have stuck out through this, man, massive thank you. Please subscribe, like, share, Propelio.tv. Don't forget about the Propelio Academy at propelio.com/academy. And of all things, first and foremost, Propelio is a software company. We provide tools to real estate investors. We provide content like this to help the real estate investing community. But what I need from the real estate investing community is to share to yourself and your friends that Propelio.com is a software that will help real estate investors grow their business through website and marketing tools. We've got driving for dollar apps coming out soon. We've got national lead lists coming out soon. We've got lead lists available in select markets available right now. We've got MLS due diligence, comps, stuff like that available right now. So if you need some additional tools to accelerate your investing path, check out Propelio.com. In my opinion, the #1 software company out there for real estate investors. I might have a jaded personality on that or whatever you want to say. I am a co-founder of that company, but Propelio.com, please make sure you check that out. Got another question coming in here from YouTube. I have a property I purchased about 7 years ago. It's fully paid off. Any way I can get advice on doing my own owner finance or lease option? What do you recommend? That is a loaded question because I need to find out what is your risk tolerance, what is your current financial situation, what is your motivation, because is your motivation cash, capital, interest, what is your motivation? But I'm gonna throw 2 or 3 quick ideas out there that might be able to give you some ideas. You could do a home equity line of credit, so all the equity's not tied up there, and then turn around and sell it on a wrap. You could turn around and do a home equity refi, take out 80% of your cash, hold 80% of your cash in play, and then do not a refi, but then sell it on a wrap yet again. You could do a straight owner finance. In my opinion, that would probably be the least desirable of all, because all you're going to collect at that point in time is interest on money that you already secured. I'd much rather have that money up front in a interest-free loan, because I can do a refi, which would not have any tax implications on it, and you're going to need to confirm that with your own CPA. I would probably do a home equity line of credit or a refi at 80%, take my capital out, and then sell it on a wrap, create cash flow, create arbitrage, and create everything else in between on that. If you don't know what I just said, check out Grant Kemp in the Academy there at propelio.com/academy, and you'll learn all of that stuff for absolutely free. But if it was my property, I'd do a refi on it and then sell it on a wrap and do a little bit arbitrage on some interest. All right, so final thoughts. How can anybody help you, Greg?
Help me?
If anybody's out there watching right now, what can they do for you?
Well, I've never personally done any no money down deals, so I would like to actually get a few opportunities to partner with some private lenders who can actually help fund deals to where I don't have to actually come out of pocket. So not really interested in equity split so much, but I would definitely be looking for some private lenders. So if you're out there and you want to invest, my Facebook, Greg T. Shyne, Instagram, Greg T. Shyne, or Greg Shyne actually, and Twitter and Greg Shyne.
We'll drop
pretty simple.
We'll drop all them there in the comments.
Yeah.
I wanted to say thank you for coming on to today's show. I wanted to bring you out because I've been seeing you go into these networking events, going out there. You've always got your We Buy Houses shirt on. I love it.
I actually, dude, I actually just bought my own equipment, so it's gonna be all across the board.
That's awesome, man. Like, if you ever get to it, man, I'd like one of your shirts one of these days, man.
Yeah.
I'll put it up here on the show or something. But thank you for showing up. For those out there, if you got value out of this, remember, subscribe. We do content like all this all the time. I'll be doing another show similar to like this next week. I'm going to do a 4-part series on this, showing and breaking down deals that I've done where I can show pivots in the acquisition model, so that way all the people that are out there saying they're wholesalers can move from being a wholesaler into a single-family real estate investor.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody that's out there. Have a good day, and see you next Monday.
Have a good one.
Hey everybody, I'm Ryan with Propelio. If you like what you saw, please subscribe. Turn on those notifications and stick around for more. We have tons of content like this all over our channel. So if you want to learn more about real estate investing, stick around, watch Propelio TV, and we'll see you later.